Hmm.
Good morning. Welcome to this space where we will remember the Reverend Arthur Vaeni, who served this congregation as its minister from September 2001 through June of 2014. Thank you so much for being here today in all the ways that we gather now. We gather together to remember and honor Arthur's life and his ministry. I'm the Reverend Mary Geer, the current minister for the Olympia Unitarian Universalist Congregation. I'm joined today by two colleagues, the Reverend Linda Hart and the Reverend Carol McKinley, who knew Arthur well and worked with him. We're joined by Troy Fisher, OUC's music director, who served when Arthur was here. And many thanks to Carbon Marshall, our tech support for today, who was a child in the RE program when Arthur was here. And thank you to all the many hands who helped create this sacred space today. We are streaming and recording today's service. We're grateful for the gift of your presence in whatever way you have arrived here and wherever you are joining us from. Know that all of you and all of who you are is welcome here. Your grief and your tears, your stories and your laughter. May this be a place and a time for each of us to experience the spirit of love. And I'll say it was a joy to watch your faces as you watch the pictures on the screen and all of the memories and feelings that came with those lovely images. Thank you to Tim Ransom for sharing the slideshow from when Arthur left here. Those are the photos. We especially hold in our hearts today Arthur's beloved wife, Sally, who is joining us online from their home in New Hampshire. Sally, thank you so much for being here today. The camera's back there if you want to turn around and wave to Sally. We're just delighted that you could take time out from what is a busy weekend for you to be here and to lend us your presence. May this gathering be a balm for you as we hold you and the memories of Arthur in love today. Arthur died on October 24th, 2025, at the age of 75. He lived his last 10 years with Alzheimer's disease. He was at home, lovingly cared for by Sally until the very end, where he passed quietly and peacefully surrounded by his family. Today we remember Arthur's presence, his kindness and integrity, as we acknowledge the reality of his dying. It is a different kind of thing to mourn the death of a former minister. This congregation said goodbye to Arthur once when he left here to go elsewhere. And now we gather again in this same space to mourn his death. Arthur is well remembered here for his work in the community and his support as this congregation flourished and grew. Arthur saw this congregation through numerical growth, a building expansion, and one of the hard times of conflict in this congregation's history. He is especially remembered for bringing advocacy for and services to those without homes, literally to the church's doorsteps, or at least the parking lot. I've heard stories of Arthur's steady hand, his open heart, and his actions deeply grounded in his Unitarian Universalist values. Through these stories, I know him to have been a man of integrity and deep love, committed to service for the common good. The formal celebration of Arthur's life will be at the Star King Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Plymouth, New Hampshire on Sunday morning at 11 o'clock Pacific time. You can find out more about that at the fellowship's website. Here today, we will hold space for more informal storytelling and memory sharing about Arthur's time in Olympia. We'll make room for as many stories as we can for those on site and online for about 90 minutes or so. please take care of yourself as you need during that time. We are also collecting written stories for a notebook that we'll send to Sally. Some of you have sent me emails and photos that we've printed, and there will be paper and pencil in the commons for those on site who wish to write something to put in the notebook. And those of you who join online, you can enter something in the chat, and we'll print that and add it to the notebook too. Thank you so much for everyone who shares today. It is the practice of this community to light a chalice, the enduring symbol for Unitarian Universalists and all who are guided by the flame of love and hope. Today we light our chalice with words from Rumi, a favorite poet of Arthur's.
I need to grab matches.
You bet. Rumi, who was a favorite poet of Arthur's. Love is not written on paper, for paper can be erased, nor is it etched on stone, for stone can be broken, but it is inscribed on a heart, and there it shall remain forever.
I am Linda Hart, one of Arthur's colleagues. Arthur was very beloved by me. You'll hear more about that later. These words to gather us together. With you, a part of me has passed away. For in the peopled forest of my mind, a tree made leafless by this wintry wind shall never don again its green array. Chapel and fireside, country road and bay have something of their friendliness resigned. Another, if I would, I could not find, and I am grown much older in a day. But yet I treasure in my memory your gift of charity, your mellow ease. For these once mine, my life is rich with these, and I scarce know which part may greater be, what I keep of you, or what you take from me.
In 2002, when it was time to have Arthur's installation, I asked him if there was any specific music he wanted. And he handed me 2 pieces of poetry and asked if I might set one of them to music. That was a new request in my life. And one of the poets was really new to my life, which was E.E. Cummings, and has since become a favorite of mine. And coming back to the piece that the choir sang at Arthur's installation, it seemed appropriate maybe to have these words sung into the air again. They speak, I think, to who Arthur was and his ministry here. I am a little church. E.E. Cummings. I am a little church, no great cathedral, far from the splendor and squalor of hurrying cities. I do not worry if briefer days grow briefest. I am not sorry when sun and rain make April. My life is the life of the reaper and the sower. My prayers are prayers of earth's own clumsily striving, finding and losing and laughing and crying children whose any sadness or joy is my grief or my gladness. I am a little church, no great cathedral. I am a little church, no great cathedral. I am a little church, little church. Around me surges a miracle of unceasing birth and glory and death and resurrection. Over my sleeping self float flaming symbols. Over my sleeping self float flaming symbols of hope, of hope, of hope, of hope. And I wake to the perfect patience of mountain. I am a little church far from the frantic world, with its rapture and anguish, at peace with nature. I do not worry if longer days grow longest. I am not sorry when silence becomes singing, singing. Winter to spring, I lift my diminutive spire to merciful Him whose only now is forever and ever. Standing erect in the deathless truth of His presence, welcoming humbly His light and proudly His darkness. I am a little church laughing and crying. I am a little church reaping and sowing. I am a little church finding and losing, hoping and singing. I am a little church. I am a little church.
As we gather here to remember the Reverend Arthur Vaeni, it is, to use words he often used, it is so good to be together. And it is especially good to be together with you, Sally.
Thank you.
On a warm, sunny afternoon in 2001, Arthur and Sally arrived in Olympia as he began his ministry in the Olympia Unitarian Universalist congregation. And hopefully, a memory of that day remained with Arthur as a reminder for him that even on some days, we still have occasionally warm, sunny days here in the Pacific Northwest. He was such a lover of warmth and sunshine. Not long after their arrival, the September 11th terrorist attacks occurred, and Arthur's introduction to many of you in this religious community was at a special service as he offered comfort and his compassionate presence for stunned and traumatized members and neighbors. Arthur's gift of his loving presence remains a treasured memory of his time with all of us. We all so valued his ability to make each person he spoke with feel like the most important person in the room, to take risks for causes that he knew were morally right, to advocate quietly but persistently for care and compassion for all those who live in this community. And of course, this was not always an easy task. Many of you here know the story of how the tent city, Camp Quixote, found its first home in OUUC's parking lot. But perhaps less well known is Arthur's work that made Camp Quixote real. Listening to and fully hearing the concerns of pressured elected officials, of skeptical congregation members, yes, and of angry neighbors. Attending meetings, then more meetings, advocating as city ordinances were drafted and adopted, encouraging OUUC volunteers who provided meals and support to camp residents, working with other faith communities to host Camp Quixote on a rotating basis as plans for a permanent tiny host community began to emerge. And there is much more within this congregation for which we remain grateful. His presence in this pulpit on Sunday mornings, his thoughtful sermons, yes, and those New Yorker cartoons, his good humor, his humility have opened many of us to a larger, more dynamic faith. Through his leadership, OUUC became a more active voice for justice in this larger community. Arthur's generosity and his inclusiveness, his commitment to community and to the power of relationship, his faith in the goodness and the beauty of this life, his personal example, have inspired many of us to work to make this world a better, a more loving place. Perhaps you have memories of how he placed a kiss on the head of an infant at a child dedication, presided over weddings of men and women, men and men, women and women, and of course, presided over the many memorials for those we have lost. During his 13 years at OUUC, each of us experienced Arthur's compassionate pastoral presence as we face joys and sorrows in our own lives. And for most of those years, he commuted by bicycle from his home on Olympia's east side to church, and then bicycled off to meeting and to meeting and to another meeting. And that crosstown commute was only briefly interrupted one Saturday morning by his trip to the emergency room and then to the operating room, following his bike's unfortunate skid on black ice out here in OUUC's parking lot. Yes, we all have much to be grateful for. His long-time interest in peaceful resolution of disagreements led to the formation of OUUC's Healthy Congregations Team, and now known as also the Healthy Congregations Team. He continues that tradition. He also supported this building's expansion, and the first priority was the addition of a new religious education wing. How many of you were here to inaugurate that space by covering your palms with paint and then pressing them to the wall? Wow, great. You left your mark upon that space, later covered by drywall. And Arthur's handprint remains there. It remains in many ways on those walls and on this building. With other local clergy, Arthur brought a moral voice to issues in Thurston County. He was active in interfaith works programs and activities, and with Sidewalk, a local nonprofit dedicated to ending homelessness in Thurston County. His commitment to building a peaceful, welcoming community led to his being honored in 2014 by Thurston County Dispute Resolution Center with its Evan Ferber Peacemaker Award. And that award was well-deserved. Arthur modeled in his life and in his ministry how we can and should move from Sunday services into Monday and into the rest of the week with integrity and commitment. For so many of us who are Unitarian Universalist ministers, Arthur was a beloved colleague and compassionate guide, serving as a good officer to ministers facing challenges in their ministries and to those making a transition into or from congregations. His wise counsel was so appreciated, and that was especially true for me. Arthur was a dear friend, my minister, and my colleague. He modeled for me what ministry can be, not only in the congregation, but in the world. At my ordination in this sanctuary 20 years ago, he offered me this ritual's traditional charge to the minister, concluding with these words: "It is the act of love that we seek and that the world so needs. This is my final charge to you, dear friend and colleague, to share your love for life, to share your love with all who so sorely need it." And indeed, I feel that was Arthur's charge to all of us. He steadfastly and so generously shared his love of life, his abundant love with all who sorely need it, and with all of us. This remains his lasting gift to each one of us and to this world. Thank you, Arthur, for being our companion on this congregation's spiritual journey and for the time we had with you. Amen.
We're going to invite Sally now to say a few words.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think the first thing I wanted to share is that I came a little early at Carbon and Mary's suggestion to have some sound and video and all that, make sure it was right. And I was so touched by just kind of seeing this sanctuary and hearing the little busyness that was going on as the service is being made ready. And so it was quite a comfort to me. I thank Mary and I thank all of you for having me here. I know that you must have vivid memories of Arthur during the time that he was here with you, and I am glad for that. I too am thankfully beginning to reconnect to the early memories of when he was well, and I expect to be brought back to that time today, and I look forward to it. When I thought about what you might want to know about Arthur during these last several years, 3 things came to mind. First, he loved you. He loved this congregation and the people in it. He loved being a minister, and he loved being your minister. Next, he never lost his awe and wonder for the natural world. And finally, I believe he continued to choose how to live, to appreciate life and to savor its small moments. Well, when we first came back to our home in Plymouth after Arthur's diagnosis, we were both kind of stunned. Neither of us knew what to expect or what would happen next. I had moments of terror almost. But we did know that being active and getting outdoors invariably brought reprieve. So we got out on our tandem bike nearly every day. One summer day, we were pumping along a lovely road, having just come down a hill, when from the front seat, I heard Arthur beginning to cry and then sob. I was alarmed. What was wrong? What should I do? We had to stop. Well, we did stop. And when I asked him what it was, he gazed around him at the sky, at the trees, at the fields along the side of the road, and said with deep joy, "Oh, I love this earth. It's just so beautiful." We kept riding for several years, and each ride was its own joy. And like many things in our lives, the bike rides slowly slipped away, becoming shorter, then less frequent, then replaced with slower activities, walks in the woods, or even just up to the mailbox. It became harder to get him interested in being outside. When I did, even at the end, I would say, "Are you glad we got out?" And his face and posture would lift and brighten. And he would say, "Oh, yeah, it's so beautiful." Now, in a few minutes, he might be ready to go back into the house and sit in his chair. But he still valued and appreciated that time outside. I always thought of Arthur as a calm and steady presence. And not always, but there were plenty of times of frustration, irritation, and confusion. But to a remarkable degree, he remained so, even with the disease. He still made clear choices about how to live his life. At times, he would say he felt he was no longer able to help me with anything. I would tell him how much his calm attitude went towards keeping our time together harmonious, and how much that helped me and sustained me. And when I'd remark that people with Alzheimer's often became disagreeable or angry, and I so appreciated him not being that way, he would seem puzzled. "Why would I choose to be angry?" he said. "It wouldn't help." No, it wouldn't. And he truly savored life's small pleasures, like the wonderful glass of water I brought him in the morning, one morning. He said, "This water is so good. Thank you so much for bringing it. It's just what I needed." Now, by this time, he really could not remember very much, but the guy knew joy when he saw it, and he knew how to share that joy in gratitude. At times, a caretaker's moments of sustenance and grace come in snippets and from very unexpected places. A few days before he died, Arthur spent a night and a good part of the next day in the hospital. He was calm, polite, and kind to all the people there, thanking them for their work. And when he was being discharged, he thanked his nurse for her caring and her good work. I will carry with me what she said. "You were a joy."
Some of you will remember when Arthur decided that we should change the way we celebrated birthdays. And it seems petty and small now that that was such a big moment in time. And he asked me to take his hand and face the armament with him. And I was scared to death. Oh, Lord, Lord, a new birthday song. And he imbued it with meaning, and I thought you might enjoy just singing it. Let's sing the gift of life, shall we? Yeah. Each of us rising from the earth, seeking love and wholeness from the moment of our birth. May this coming year bring to you the gift of knowing love and a life that touches truth. May this coming year bring to you the gift of knowing love and a life that touches truth.
During my candidating week with you, probably 5 people said, "The birthday song!" Now I know what it is. How lovely is that? Another gift from Arthur. We want to make time and space to share stories and memories and have that be much of what we do together today. We have 2 microphones up here, this microphone and that one. And so just a little bit of logistics. We want to invite people to come up and flow from one mic to the other. So when someone's speaking at this microphone, someone else can be getting ready to speak at that one. We want to make as much space as possible for as many people to share, both on site here and for those online who want to speak in addition to, or perhaps instead of putting something in the chat. We would invite you to consider what would you like to share, what must be shared, knowing that there are so many stories and memories of Arthur's long ministry here. Please share as much as you need to with a mindfulness toward the others who are here and the memories that will be shared. Troy also has a microphone that he can bring if you prefer to stay in your seat. Just wave or raise your hand and Troy can bring you a microphone to speak as well. So as we begin, I'd like to invite Reverend Linda to start. And if someone, as she is finishing, if someone else would like to come up to this mic, we would welcome that.
I first met Arthur back in the 1990s when I was serving the congregation in Woodstock, Vermont, and he was serving in New Hampshire. And I have to admit, I had the biggest dang crush on him that I was just absolutely taken by him. Sadly, he was not as taken by me. Oh well, I'm grateful for his presence in my life all that time. When Peter and I moved here from Spokane, it was the same time that Arthur was coming here as minister, and I was so delighted to know that he was going to be my minister. And as it happened, he and Sally and Peter and I and Claire, who was just a babe in arms at that time, got to the parking lot at the same time. And as we got out of the car and I saw Art and Sally coming in, I yelled, "Arthur!" And he turned and looked at me and could not figure out who I was and how he knew me. It took him a couple of minutes, and then he was like, "Oh, Linda, oh, so," and so we had a wonderful, wonderful reunion. His ministry here, and to me as both his colleague and his congregant, was powerful and deep. The model of a minister who had such compassion and love and depth was just a gift to me all around. I can't hardly express how much that could mean. His capacity for compassion and love and his intolerance of nonsense, both, were gifts to me to watch that happen. I remember one Sunday when somebody got up in the sharing of joys and sorrows and went on and on about something that was not a joy or a sorrow, but an announcement that he was making even as not a member of this congregation. And Arthur's sharpness in addressing that was, as I say, a gift to all of us. I will hold my memories of him fondly and forever.
I have to share my memory of the service from April Fools when I was celebrant, and Arthur and we had cooked up. I was on worship arts, and we had cooked up a fun service. Anyhow, there were lots of elements, and Arthur suggested that I bring a pillow and a blanket to the podium, up here with me. And as soon as he started his sermon, I was to take out my pillow and snuggle up and pretend to fall asleep. And I didn't see all the pictures. I hope there's a picture of Arthur with the flamingo attached to his bicycle helmet. And his love of joy, that was his idea. I thought it was like, oh my God, that's just too much. But it was a wonderful service, and I so enjoyed working with him.
So I'll just mention, Karen, that Melissa Denton shared a picture of Arthur with the flamingo hat on, and Sally, it's printed, and it will be coming in the things that we'll send you.
Okay, hi, I'm Melanie Ransom, and I have show and tell. So, over the years, our auctions here have been epic, and one year Arthur put this item in the auction that we purchased. Sally, you'll probably remember this. He carved this, and we've had this for how long, Jim?
Since 2012 or so.
Right, and we think it kind of looks like Arthur. It was, so he took a class, apparently he took a carving class, and sometimes when people are new carvers, they carve stuff that looks exactly like them, and so we think that's what he did. But we think it's probably time to return this to you, Sally, and Sally, at the time, you're probably like, Arthur, get that out of the house, put it in the auction, and but you're getting it back now.
Well, when I was asked to put together a slideshow for this event, I got started on doing so, and in the process, remembered that I'm an inveterate digital hoarder, and that started to look back to see what I had and realized that I had done that one for his departure, and thought there was nothing better I could do. So glad to have that up there. I remember Arthur through all the time of the hard times of Camp Quixote Village, all the things that we went through, and right up to just before he left the opening of Quixote Village. And just remember the intensity of all that, and just now realized, and pardon me if I have trouble, because that's the way I am, that Arthur was perhaps inappropriately my best friend. I don't know that that's the way you're supposed to relate to your minister, but I did. And when we were together, we spent a lot of intense time together, and that's the way friendships happen. The thing that I wanted to share with you is that when we all went to Kisholamos, there was a time when Arthur and I think Sharon Love and a few others of us went out for a walk to the hill behind the town. And it was a small mountain, really. And at one point, Arthur just dropped everything and headed up, straight up the hill. You know, and Arthur, in case you don't know from the pictures, was in extraordinary shape. He could go do things that I would never even consider. But he went up this hill and this mountain really, and disappeared over the top of it. Sharon's nodding, yes. And I knew he was headed in the general direction of the part of Europe that his family his ancestry had come from. And I was scared to death that we had lost him. Fortunately, he did come back.
There are a bajillion stories that could be told about Arthur. But anyway, the one that comes to my mind is that many of you may know that he had a real close friendship with the rabbi from the Jewish community over here. And they conjured up that we should have an interchurch baseball game, softball really. And so they organized that, and I played on it, and a bunch of us other people did, and they beat us pretty bad. So we wanted a rematch. And so this time, Arthur made sure that we had a few, well, for lack of better words, ringers on the team. And we kicked we won decisively and had a big party afterward.
It's kind of a reunion to be here with Tim and with Bernie. Bernie recruited me to be on the board, and then I was on the board for 1 year, and then I was on the board for 3 more years, 2 of them as vice president under Tim and a year as president. And it was so fulfilling and such a part of me growing up and growing as a person and working closely with Arthur. All those meetings, every week we would have a meeting with Arthur at Traditions before sermon and before the service and talk about what was going to happen and what was going on in the church and everything. And of course we had the board meetings every month. So we had a lot of work together that we did. And I just feel that Arthur was such, for me, and I imagine for so many of you, such an instrumental part of who I became after being so blessed to know him. I'm so grateful for Arthur and his wisdom. After I was gone for the board and that, a few years later, we had a really difficult time that we went through, and I also got to interact with Arthur about that, and my gosh, it was such hard stuff and such graceful, hardworking, striving in every way to be the right person, the right way to help all that needed help through it. And my goodness, when you see somebody whenever they go through something hard, you really see what they're made of. And Arthur was an incredibly wonderful, wonderful person, wonderful part of my life, and I'm very, very grateful.
Good morning. This is hard, and I may follow Tim's example and almost fall apart as I'm doing this. I had one of the things I value most in my life was I was on the search committee that brought Art here. And I think I may be the only one in this room that was actually on that search. Was Jenny? No, Jenny wasn't. Yeah, I can name the members. But we would, for about a year, we met weekly at the Milton Bard conference room, and with Ron Hansen and Brian Missildine and Connie Rule, Karen Kruger, Bonnie Geyer-Graham, who's now in Minnesota somewhere. But we met weekly, and like Linda said, we had a crush on Arthur. I mean, it was just, when Art came, I call him Art more often than Arthur. He was always Art to me, and I'll try to honor being called Arthur. But, we fell in love with Arthur, and just working with this group of people to make this decision, it was a pretty easy decision. To invite Arthur to come here was great. But our secret weapon was Ron Rule, as Ron Rule would host a dinner, and he would cook, and we would be at the Rule's house, and we brought, Art came out for his candidacy, came, and he brought Sally with him, and that only reinforced, we got to have Arthur because we love Sally also, and I'm so grateful to Sally for sharing Art with us, and for bringing her presence into our community. It was great. So I only got 3 more minutes, so I'm going to try to pick up my pace here a little bit. But there's so many, it's been mentioned, as people mentioned, so many stories. And I guess the words I remember are joy, humor. Art was funny. Art could be very funny. And he convinced me to do a few things. I think I wore a television on my head for one of his skits and just other things. And he was just such a joy being with Art. I want to mention one other little incident. I was mentioned earlier that how he fell on his bicycle, and he fell. I happened to be coming to that meeting, driving into the parking lot, and saw the fall. And then Art stood up, and he was holding his bike, and he wasn't moving very well, it seems. So I asked him if he was okay, and he goes, "No, I don't think so." So I put him in my car, drove him to the hospital, to the emergency room. Gave him crap the entire way about why he didn't use public transportation more. But he was, that was my role, that was my job. And Sally came to the hospital when I left and took over. But even in that moment when I'm sure he was in great pain, he still had his humor and just kindness and all. So thank you all. Thank you, Sally. Thank all of you for allowing us to kind of have these memories of the moments we had with Art. And thank you.
Well, I think Mike said it all really well. And I just wanted to thank you, Sally, for sharing Arthur with us. He was such a great gift to our congregation and to me personally. I'll never forget him.
How about if we check and see if there's anybody online who wants to speak? Corbin, how's that looking? No? Okay.
Well, I was reminded when Troy did the birthday song that Arthur kind of led us through changes, but he took very long, slow time to do it. So there was the birthday song. Oh yeah, and there was Joys and Concerns. And then there was the Yule play. Oh my goodness. Some of us were wedded to that Yule play, but it caused so much grief in the December service, and I think it was Art. I can't remember for sure, but I'm pretty sure he convinced us that we could do something else. And then Sarah tried to have something offline, and it was hard. Changes were hard. The Yule play was the hardest. Yeah.
I'm Sarah, and it was Arthur's ministry when I was hired here as the religious educator. So Arthur was the minister that mentored me and really taught me how to be a religious professional. And he told me right away at the beginning that he wouldn't be able to tell me what to do as a religious educator, but he would know when I did it wrong. And as a mentor, he could be very exacting and very strict, actually. He was very keen on right thought and right speech, particularly about congregants, and that it was important to always, always hold everyone in love, even if they were driving you crazy, especially when they were driving you crazy. And about being non-anxious. And when we went through hard times, and we did go through hard times, he really taught me how to be non-anxious, and that it was my job sometimes to just not make things worse, even if I couldn't fix anything. Arthur really shaped who I am as a person and as a religious professional. But sometimes his advice was more practical and couched in the terms of our both being veterans. He advised me to never get too good with the coffee maker or the copy machine. With a reminder that was in a bit of military terms, that the only reward for digging a good ditch is that they make you more of a ditch digger. So I truly, truly would not be the person I am today without Arthur's mentorship.
Hi, my name is Wendy Tanner, and when I first came to OUC, I was pretty guarded against organized religion and was not very interested, was very skeptical about joining a congregation. In fact, we were married here in 1998, but we just had a hard time really finding our way or getting engaged. And then after 9/11 happened, we were like, we just need to be with people. And we came here for his, I think maybe first sermon after 9/11, and that was it. We were sold. We still didn't join though. It took a few years, and we finally did the new member class. And so I remember after the end of it, he said, well, are you going to join? And I said, well, I want the magazine, so I guess I'm going to have to. He thought that was okay response. But I remember one of the things we like to do when we travel is to go visit other UU congregations. And I don't remember where we were exactly or who told us this, but we said we were from Olympia, and they were like, oh, St. Arthur. You're with St. Arthur. And we're like, really? I said, like, yeah, that's what we call him. Because he is, don't you think?
So I'm that rabbi. That was referred to Rabbi Seth Goldstein. And we did that. I want to add to that story too, which was a really wonderful memory of Arthur. Part of that too, we put our beards on the line. So we bet our beards. And if you notice in the picture that Tim put up, we did win one of the, I don't remember the other one. But yes, Arthur did shave, and that was quite a delight for everybody. And I don't remember the ringers in that, but I was saying back here, I think that's when we learned that Ichiro was a Unitarian, because, But I just want to say that I followed Arthur. I came to Olympia 2 years after Arthur did, and yet it felt like he was here for so much longer, because he felt so well established in the community and in his ministry and his work and at the community here, the congregation, but also the greater Olympia community. And I was blessed to be his colleague for 11 years when he and was here when he did his departing service. And he still is a presence in my life here and my work and my community and my congregation, but also in the greater community. I really look to Arthur as somebody who was a colleague, a friend, but also a real mentor, somebody whose lessons and leadership in the work that he did in serving community still reverberate. I think he really modeled for me. I came to here straight out of seminary, so I was brand new. I'm still sticking around, but that's I was brand new, and with his experience, life experience, but also other community experience, he really modeled for me somebody who made the work of social justice a part of their ministry, and how that could really be a spiritual voice for the common good and community change was something he truly modeled for me and for a lot of people, as we've heard, and those continue to live within me, and got to know him as well. We had a small clergy group that we formed, he and I and a few other of the local ministers, just to get together and be together and to fellowship and to connect with one another and to complain about our various congregations. So I know quite a bit of things. No, I'm just kidding. He did leave me a new birthday song he wanted me to bring to you all. But truly blessed to be here, blessed to have known Arthur, to have been his friend and colleague, and a student of his, as I would say, and his memory, as we say, is a blessing to all of us. So thank you.
Well, I'm a child who grew up in this congregation, and I was so happy when the adults finally let go of the Sunday school birthday song. It was absolutely heaven to me. I loved it as a child, and I was very happy to have the changes, Joys and Sorrows, another one. Oh my gosh, finally it's done. But I wanted to share something that really touched me as a choir member who gets to sing in services and has the privilege of hearing sermons more than once, often, on a Sunday. If you go to pulpit exchanges, as a choir, you also have an opportunity to hear sermons more than twice, or 3 times, or 4 times. And Arthur had a fabulous sermon that was always so fun to hear again, the string theory sermon. Wonderful. Thank you, Sally, for sharing your husband with us so generously.
I grew up in the Methodist Church, but from the age of 12, I knew that I wasn't a Methodist, that I wasn't a Christian. All of that didn't work for me. And in 1955, spring of 1955, I attended Howard University, and I got a look at the real life that none of us seemed to know about, the white folk in my life. And I was looking for a place to find what I did believe and to become active in what I was learning at Howard. Well, it took a while to find it. 25 years ago, Lori Eaton, my business partner and dear friend, came back from a visit that she and Harmon had been attending a book club here. And she said, you know, I was reading the literature she said, have you ever heard of the Unitarian Church? And I said, no, I just thought it was a watered down version of Christianity. And she said, well, I've been reading their literature, and I think this is what you've been talking about for the last 10 years. So Mike and I came the next Sunday, and Arthur's sermon was exactly what I had waited all those years to find and hear. It was so meaningful. I had tears in my eyes during the sermon and took notes for about a month of coming. But one of the things that I learned here was where to put what I had wanted to do and wanted to learn more about and be involved in, and that was dealing with homeless people, because Howard is located in inner city DC, and walking to work at night when I was a student there, I could see that there were lots of things I didn't know about my community and about my personhood. So I signed up for some of the things where Arthur was leading, and I went to some of those meetings too. And I became active in helping with Camp Quixote and the Women's Emergency Overflow Shelters. Many of you might remember that, where if you signed up, you slept on the floor. So I will be eternally grateful for giving me, Arthur, this door of opening myself and what I wanted to be a part of. And still today, I am involved in the Unity Commons twice a month dinners that we provide. Some of you may not know that OUC has been involved with feeding the homeless and with volunteers for many, many years. And at this time, we meet on the 3rd and 4th Wednesday and care for those folks that have less than we do and so much need to know that they too are loved. Thank you, Arthur. You've changed my life.
I'm Danny. For 8 years, I was the director of Interfaith Works. So I'm here today not as a member of this congregation, but I've always felt a part of this congregation. Then and now, I'm a neighbor as well. My mind and heart are ping-ponging all around, and I do have certainly a lot of personal memories of Arthur and time I spent with him one-on-one, as well as in endless meetings, which he arrived at by bicycle. In sleet. That's a memory that's embedded. But I wanted to take a step back and not repeat necessarily. Carol had a tremendous tribute, I think, and covered those issues, Rabbi Seth as well, and several of you members. But from an outside perspective, non-member of the congregation, who worked with a lot of clergy and a lot of congregations, I just wanted to leave you with the sense of how important Arthur as a person was, but also his role, which has been occupied by others since, and the role of this congregation in the wider community. And perhaps, you have this thought in your head and heart, but I'm here to reinforce it, that beyond your numbers and beyond your budget and beyond the hours of the day that you have available to you, you have made, with Arthur in the lead, such an imprint on this community. And I speak as a witness and a partner in that, that I'll never forget. I mean, and for me, coming into a small interfaith organization that was relatively part-time, really, honestly, Arthur was such a support to me personally, and sharing the vision of what we could do together with the other clergy, with the other congregations, and with elected leaders. And I just want to leave you with that reality that you made such an imprint. And it was Arthur who empowered you, empowered me, empowered other clergy and other congregations to follow his lead. That thought has been such a powerful one over the last weeks since I learned of Arthur's passing. And you can point to so many concrete results of the work, and I will try to do that online as a permanent memory. But it's such an honor to be here today. I was here at his last service as well, so ping-ponging is the best way I can describe my feelings right now. Thank you for allowing me to come.
Reverend, we'll check again. Anybody online who'd like to speak? Yes. Thank you. We'll do that.
Hello, this is Sam Merrill. I am a Quaker, and as so was my wife. We came here about 20 years ago, but we came a certain number of times to the Unitarian Church. And a lot of the reason was because Arthur Vaeni was the one who was giving the sermons, and they meant a lot to us, and the other activities that were held. And my wife later had terminal cancer. She was at home, and Arthur Vaeni, although we were Quakers, came by to talk to her, and that was very meaningful to both of us.
Mm.
Gail, you mentioned the Yule play, and I don't think it got enough credit here. So I got to talk about the Yule play. I think I can consider myself at that time in my life that I was probably a lapsed Catholic, and religion, organized religion, was not really something that was very attractive to me. But the idea of the Yule play and what went into the Yule play, and credits here to Joe Joy, Kelly Thompson, Mike, I believe, and who else? Fritz. So many people. Of course, Troy for the music. But yeah, I'm probably not remembering enough names here, so forgive me if I'm not remembering all the names. But the Yule play represented for me and for my family. It brought me back into what was, to Martha and I, a new community as well. We had just moved here. So it became this community of friendship, and the preparation that went into the Yule play was epic. I mean, it went on for months before it actually happened. And the detail associated with this, we still talk about to this day. But I thank Arthur for that, for his tolerance of being able to allow so much frivolity that's happening in around the holiday period. And it brought together that other semblance of people who probably would not have been as involved in organized religion. So for that, I thank you, Arthur, and he was a big part of that. Thanks.
I'm Samantha Ritchie, and I remember the very first time that Arthur spoke here, I was too shy to go say hi to him, but my then 5-year-old ran up to him and hugged him around the knees and came back to me and said, "I just gave the usher a big hug." Well, what I remember a great deal about Art, and I am a changed person because of him. One thing is, Mike Harbour and I taught Al our whole lives for years, and Art always said that he thought that was one of the best things that OUUC did, and I think he was right. I stopped coming here after Art left, which was stupid of me, but there you go. And part of it was because I would have missed him too much. I learned so much from that man, and I will never be the same.
Hi, I'm Rick, and Arthur and I had a couple things in common. One was we both broke the exact same hip in the exact same place, falling on black ice. And I remember he came and visited me in the hospital, and what I remember was he was holding his bike helmet. And so it gave me hope, oh, I'm gonna ride again. The other thing I wanted to mention was I was talking with him one time in his office, and we were talking about this whole idea of conflicting truth claims of different religions. We're having this theological discussion, and I was making some comment about how people should just think metaphorically, and then it all makes sense, and all of a sudden you can celebrate life and God and whatever in a universal way. And he turned to me and he said, "And you have the privilege of thinking that way." It's helped to kind of combine the thinking about social justice and being in a world of inequity with the world of our minds and our thoughts. We went opposite directions. I started in ministry direction and found my calling in social work. And he said that he was a social worker years ago and found his calling in ministry. So there's a lot of different paths. And thank you, Arthur.
Hi, my name is Tiara, and it's so nice to see you all. Ironically, Arthur actually pulled me away from this congregation by turning me into a Buddhist. One time, for a sabbatical, he went on a 2-month silent meditation retreat to Spirit Rock Meditation Center, which I now sort of consider my spiritual home. So he introduced me to that, and that's been my spiritual practice since. But the only other thing I have so many memories of him, and I just loved him so, so much. And I think that I was here the night did we vote on him? I mean, we were all here and we voted to say, yeah, you're our guy. And it probably was the only time before or since that 100% of us all agreed on something. And I was thinking about like a person being in love with him, and then a committee being in love with him, and then an entire congregation not only falling in love with him, but staying in love with him. And just so just hold such a debt of gratitude to him and his time here and all of you. So thank you.
So in 2017, we were on a bike trip with the Thompsons and with Mark and Alana. And we were over in Quebec and then Nova Scotia. And then we stopped in New York because the Thompsons had some family there. Well, Susan and I were able to take what we called the big ass truck and our bikes over, and we visited Sally and Arthur. You know, Sally mentioned that Arthur and she would go out on the tandem and bike. Now, you might picture that this was a calm ride on a nice flat road. It wasn't. The only thing I can compare is something out in Capitol Forest. So Arthur was in front, Sally in the back. I think Sally was directing Arthur which turns to take. But they took off, and like Arthur does in hiking up hills, he just off he goes. And Susan and I were on our bikes and going, oh, well, okay, here we go. And so we go up the hills and we're winding around, and they just wailed down these roads, and we're going, okay, we're going to take this a little slower. But it was very exhilarating. It's one of our wonderful memories of being with Arthur and Sally at that time, and then having tea afterwards, and you know, Arthur just being his gentlemanly self, and very calm and friendly and lovely. And thank you, Sally.
No, Jack.
My name is Jack, and I'm a member of the Broken Hip Club. Not at the same time as Arthur's, but, you know, I can appreciate what he went through. I was the president of the board the last day that Arthur was in this congregation. And we had a big celebration, and I can remember him, he gave me a hug, and he walked across the parking lot with Sally. He never looked back. And I was heartbroken. You don't measure greatness by the size of an individual. You measure greatness by the effect they had on others. Thank you.
I arrived here in 2005, and I had the wonderful honor of having a one-on-one with Arthur in his office, and just to get a feeling of what he was all about, voice my concerns slightly, and I was so impressed with his warm humaneness and humility, and just that short briefing, and of course all the services that he led subsequent to that. It meant an awful lot to me, and I just wanted to publicly express that he was a wonderful, humane human being.
I'm Suzanne Wilson,
Clearly, Arthur worked very well with people, but he also worked really well with animals. He would have a service called Blessing of the Animals, and I attended 2 of those with my 108-pound Old English sheepdog. And there were macaws and rabbits and cats and little dogs, but Wally really loved Arthur. And when the choir would sing, Wally would bark so loud. And when Arthur would get, a chuckle out of the crowd, Wally would bark. And Arthur just played off it as if he worked with animals all the time. The other thing I really appreciated about the Arthur years, aside from the deep spiritual and intellectual leadership and aspiration that he put in my life, was how he interacted with our musical director. There was so much synergy. There was just so much going on there, and it was really beautiful. So thank you.
Carmen, we'll check again. Is there anyone online who would like to share? Is there anything else here that needs to be said today?
I'm Alice. The first time I saw Arthur was right after the 2001 terrorist attack, and he was at the steps of the state capitol with other faith leaders responding with the community. And after that, I started attending services here. My big brother Riley was coming regularly, so I started coming, but had not made a commitment. I noticed there were a whole bunch of other former Catholics that I ran into. Everybody from St. Michael's had kind of migrated over here. But I was attending services and also working on trying to abolish the death penalty. So I was very involved in that. And so I asked Arthur after service one day, how about doing a sermon on the death penalty? And he said, oh, yeah, I guess I could do that. And then he invited me into his office and said, okay, so you're going to get up and help do this sermon. And I hardly knew anybody here. And what's happening right now is my right leg is vibrating. That's what happened as I was standing at the pulpit, and I had the choir over here, and I was shaking. But I appreciated Arthur for challenging me and drawing me in that way. And he didn't just say, sure, I'll go with that. He said, you'll come with me. Thank you.
Thank you all for your sharing and bringing Arthur's spirit and presence and life into this space today.
It seemed appropriate that we would sing Arthur's benediction. So the lyrics we projected up on the screen. If you're online, there's a lyric sheet that you can find the words on. There we go.
Inhabitants
Words from Wendell Berry. He goes free of the earth. The sun of his last day sets clear in the sweetness of his liberty. The earth recovers from his dying, the hallow of his life remaining in all his death leaves. Radiances know him. Grown lighter than breath, he is set free and our remembering. Grown brighter than vision, he goes dark into the life of the hill which holds his peace. He is hidden among all that is and cannot be lost. So it is for our beloved Arthur. Amen.
We close with gratitude. Gratitude for the life and the ministry of the Reverend Arthur Vaeni. His life was one of service, as we have heard so clearly today, and his legacy is one of love. His spirit lives on in this building and in this congregation, and may his spirit inspire us to serve the world as it is needed today. May that knowing, with that knowing, may a healing come to the hearts of those, all of us who mourn his passing. Our grief is a mark of love, the mark of connection, the mark of a life well lived. May Arthur rest in peace. We will extinguish our chalice with words from Rumi. Grief can be a garden of compassion. If you keep your heart open through everything, your pain can become your greatest ally in your life's search for love and wisdom. For those who have joined us online, thank you so much for your presence today. And Sally, thank you so much for joining us and being here with us. We have loved having your presence virtually and appreciate you taking your time to be here and share about Arthur. Know that you are held in love here as you join with family and friends to celebrate Arthur's life this weekend. And for those on site, you are invited into the Commons for a light lunch, for fellowship, and I am sure more storytelling. Thank you all for being here today. May you go with love.